I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. So quite a special episode here. We have one of our own members of the TCRS community, went all the way, drove out from Denver to this Moffat site, went via Salida, also went to visit the Puma Path area. Her name's Lesil McGuire, and I'm going to let her narrate while we're looking at her photos, while we're looking at her footage. I'm going to let her narrate her thoughts, feelings, observations. When we talk about the most authentic voice in true crime, that is what this channel aspires to be, and there's nothing more authentic than going there yourself and getting a real sense of what is really going on out there in the world. Before I hand over to Lisel, I just want to just express my appreciation. I've driven from Boulder to the Great Sand Dunes, in other words, via Salida and via Moffat. It's not a straight shot. It's quite a difficult technical drive. I drove it in through a thunderstorm and driving rain. I drove back through the night, and it definitely isn't the easiest drive in the world. So I just want to thank Lisel for doing that. It's also a beautiful countryside, but one goes through ravines and so on that are definitely quite difficult to get through before the landscape sort of opens up. Anyway, I'm going to hand over to her. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment. If you've been following the MORPHEW case and you're interested in following our coverage and you haven't subscribed, I want to encourage you to please subscribe to this channel. And now, without further ado, Lesil McGuire.
Hi, Nick, and everyone in our True Crime Rocket Science community. This is Lesil McGuire, lawyer and 16-year state senator who worked diligently on women's rights. During COVID, my son and I had just moved to Colorado for him to begin schooling. And the case of SUZANNE MORPHEW emerged. And at first, I think we all believed that she had gone on a bike ride. And perhaps there was someone out there who was preying on women. Within a couple of weeks, it became apparent that there was more to the story, and I became fixated on it. Your coverage and that of many other people in the true crime community was outstanding, and it brought me into a world that I hadn't really known before, that of true crime on YouTube and the coverage of missing women, missing human beings, their plight, and how much justice is needed in this world, and how important the true crime community can be to that. So today, I went back to Salida, the place that I went in September of 2020 to join Suzanne's brother, Andy's search. I wanted to go back to Puma Path, to Foose's Creek, and to the areas that we had searched, just to reflect on what had happened. What struck me right away was how time just marches on. There was so much peace in the area where her bike had been dumped, where we had searched for hours and days. It was almost as if nothing had happened. And there was a sadness to that, and also a peace. From there, I took the road out to the place where we now know Suzanne's remains have been recovered. First of all, it's a fairly quick trip. It's about 43 minutes. I think one of my main thoughts was, why didn't we go south? And I still have some questions about that, and I guess we all have a lot to learn. We didn't. We focused around the house and around the pathway to Broomfield where we knew he had gone. But if you really think about that, if someone allegedly has committed a murder, I think the narrative that they put forward is something we all have to be very cautious of. Even when we doubt them, at some level, it sinks in. And those were the areas that we were searching. I remarked to myself that all I would have had to do is come out of the same Puma Path area and instead go south. And in 43 minutes, there would have been Suzanne's remains, and perhaps early enough to have more evidence. The drive out is fairly remote. You move into an area once you get onto Highway 17 that has very few cars passing. And I would imagine that if it was done in the dark of night, you might not even see a single car. One of the things I think that's really important to point out that I'm not sure has been clarified, her remains were not deposited right off of that highway. In fact, there is a kind of a cutout, a rural route that goes back into some BLM land, and that is where her remains are. So whoever deposited her remains there went down that road, and then they are right off to the side. It was interesting to see today all of the bobcat, all of the activity that was there from law enforcement was gone. It was extremely peaceful, almost desolate. There was an eerie silence to it. There were beautiful purple flowers everywhere. And I know that that has been a color that people have associated with Suzanne and her passing and her life. And as people move forward to get justice for her, the symbol of the butterfly and purple have been used. There were butterflies everywhere and purple flowers. The area has clearly been excavated. You can see where the sage grass has been removed and unearthed. And I've sent along some photos for you all to see that. I think the other big thing that struck me is that as you come along down Highway 17, there are no trees. It is just low-lying, deserted sage grass. And then all of a sudden on the horizon, you see one tree. I have a feeling that the person who deposited Suzanne's remains there probably had seen that tree before, making their way along that highway, and thought it might make an identifiable marker. One of the things I think that's really important for all of us to consider is that the defense will do everything they can to defend Barry at this point. But I think it's reasonable to assume that Barry was familiar with Moffat. He was familiar with Crestone and that pathway, and more than likely would have been familiar with the idea that there were remains dumped in that area from other human beings in the state. The discovery of Suzanne Morphew's remains were exactly what the government needed to prosecute. It's my greatest hope that Saguache County convenes a grand jury with the support and resources of Chaffee County and the FBI. It'll be one of those cases where all hands are needed on deck. It's a shame that Suzanne Morphew didn't get to live her remaining years on Earth she'd earned in her fight against cancer and in her personal growth. It's obvious that at the age of 49, she was metamorphosizing into a beautiful butterfly ready to fly. And I think it's really important for all of the women listening to this to remember that if you are ready to leave a situation where you have experienced violence, make a plan, make it safe, and don't tell that person. Find the right way to make it out using resources that are available to you in your community. Anyway, it was nice sharing this day with you. Thank you for everything you do, Nick, and thank you to everyone in our True Crime Rocket Science community who cares so much about these victims of crime.